Um, how many of you have ever been on a treadmill? You know, I enjoy exercise a lot. I don't enjoy all types of exercise. You know, and I think I've been on a treadmill one time in my life, and it was a long time ago. I got on, full of buttons and lights. It was very sophisticated, very fancy, and you know, I read the directions, pumped in the stuff that I was supposed to pump in, weight and distance and all that, and then I started running, and about 15 minutes went by, and I realized something. I realized I wasn't getting anywhere. And now you may be sitting there saying, Pastor, you're an idiot. That's what treadmills are for. And I understand that. But it didn't take me long. It struck me at how pointless it was just to keep kind of running in place. And I'm not knocking it. I mean, if you're a treadmill guy, that's great. But as I was doing it, I was looking around and I realized everybody else on the machine kind of had this blank look on their face. They were just kind of, you know, when I run outside, I'm looking around and you know, I hear bird, you know, I get distracted pretty easy. If there's something shiny over here, I'm going over there. And but there's always, when you're running outside, there's always a goal. You're always trying to get somewhere. You're trying to reach a mark, or you're trying to get back home after you get out halfway. But as I was on a treadmill, I started thinking, you know, life can kind of be like this for a lot of people. Just kind of going through the motions, kind of going through life and not really getting anywhere, not really going in for a destination, okay? Treadmills don't necessarily have destination. They have goals, of course, but there's not really a destination. You kind of stay in the same place. And that's fine when you're working out, but it's not good for life. And so what I wanted to do today is I wanted to kind of start us off with this. We're doing our Why series today, and we're looking at some of the tough questions in life, okay? And we're going to start off with this big question. Really, the first question that we kind of ask ourselves is, why am I here? What's the purpose? Let me ask you this. Have you ever felt at any point in your life that there's got to be something more? You ever feel that way? Like you kind of, maybe you're in school, maybe you're a dead-end job, or maybe a job that you like, but kind of no room for improvement. You ever feel like that there's got to be kind of more to life than just this? Most of us feel that way. Most of us have at one point in time. And I think it's a legitimate question. I think a lot of people, they get to a point in life, they say, okay, now what am I supposed to do? Why am I even here? What's the purpose of this? This whole incredible universe that what is my part in it? And I think, you know, we're going to look at some of these questions. We're going to look at all of these questions through the eyes of Scripture. And I think there's a man in Scripture, his name's Zacchaeus, and Zacchaeus wrestled with this. How many of you, as soon as I said Zacchaeus, you immediately went to the song Zacchaeus was a... I'm not going to sing it for you, but how many of you immediately went to that place? Yeah. He was a guy that was struggling, finding out not necessarily the meaning of life in general, but the meaning of his life in the overall scheme of things. And we kind of meet up with him in Luke. So you can turn your Bibles with me to Luke chapter 19. 2,000 years ago, even though it was a different location, a different race, a different language, it was the same question. Why? What am I supposed to do now that I'm here? Okay? And we're going to kind of look at Zacchaeus. Zacchaeus was the chief tax collector in a town called Jericho. Okay? And we pick up a story right at the beginning of Luke chapter 19, verse 1. And it says here, it says, Jesus entered Jericho and was passing through. And there was a man named Zacchaeus. He was a chief tax collector and was rich. And he was seeking to see who Jesus was. So this guy, he had money, he had fame, not great fame, but he had fame. And he hears that Jesus is coming. Now, Jesus was already by this point well known in the area. Had already performed many miracles, had already clashed with the Sanhedrin, clashed with the Pharisees and the Sadducees and the scribes. And so he was well known throughout the entire area. And Zacchaeus hears that he's coming in, and he does something life-changing. He looks beyond himself. And that's kind of the key to today's question, to look beyond ourselves, to find out why we're here, okay? We're not going to find the meaning of our life simply by looking in the mirror. You're not going to look in the mirror and say, I know what I'm supposed to do now. We're not going to get it from just our own little universe, our own little tight universe, okay? And Zacchaeus, he kind of had it made financially and resource-wise and materials and that kind of thing. And I know a lot of people, I found this interview on the street interview where they were going around asking people the purpose of life. And most of the people said, I have no idea why I'm here. But a lot of people were, well, I'm here to be happy. A lot of people were, I'm here to make as much money as I can, and that will make me happy. And so all this stuff. Well, Zacchaeus had a ton of money, a ton of resources. He was not a run-of-the-mill guy in this town. He was up in the politics. He was somebody. And the way a tax collector worked back then, goods and services would come into the town, and the tax collector was supposed to put a legitimate tax on it, send that tax to Rome, and have a little bit for himself. That's how it was supposed to be. A lot of times, and Zacchaeus was one of them, he would inflate the value of the products so that he could tax it higher and get a bigger cut for himself off of his own people, okay? And so that didn't make him a very well-liked guy. From the outside looking in, he was, looked like he was kind of sitting fat and happy. But truth was, he was small in more ways than one. He said that, he is a wee little man. He was a short guy. But apparently it wasn't just, he was a little bit shorter than the average guy. Apparently it was an issue. He was looked down upon. He was bitter, and he was lost. And Zacchaeus wasn't satisfied with life until he looked beyond himself. So one preacher put it this way, one author put it this way, it's not about you. That statement right there kind of grabs a hold of me. It's not about you. I got to look in the mirror sometimes and say, Norb, it's not about you. But then it goes on to say, the purpose of your life is far greater than your own personal fulfillment, your peace of mind, or even your happiness. It's far greater than your family, your career, even your wildest dreams and ambitions. If you want to know why you were placed on this planet, you must begin with God. We've kind of talked about this a little bit over the past few weeks in our last series, but Jeremiah puts it this way. In Jeremiah 10:23, it says, O Lord, I know that the way of a man is not in himself. It is not in man that walketh to direct his steps. So Jeremiah is saying, you know what, Lord, I know that I'm not going to be able to figure out why I'm supposed to be here on my own, looking at my resources, looking at my skills. I need to look to you. You're where I'm going to get my purpose in life. You're the answer to why I'm here. And the Apostle Paul kind of nails it down with Colossians 1:16. It says, for by him, Jesus, were all things created that are in heaven and that are in the earth, visible and invisible, whether they be thrones or dominions, principalities or power. All things were created by him and what? For him. So, in other words, the Lord made us and has an answer to the question of why we are here. Okay? So what I hope to do over the next 40 days is to spiritually charge up our batteries, to kind of re-engage us, to plug us into what God has planned, how God answers the toughest questions in life. We're going to start with this one, but we're going to look at questions like, why God in the first place? Why the God of this Bible? Why this Bible? Does it stand up against the criticism? Does it stand up against the attacks? Why Jesus? Why Jesus and not Muhammad? Why Jesus and not Confucius? Why Jesus and not Buddha? Why Jesus and not fill in the blank? So we're going to be asking these questions. We're going to look at why is there a conflict between science and the Bible? Is there a conflict? And why is it there? We're going to look at probably one of the bigger questions is, okay, if God is God and God is good, then why is the world so messed up? So we're going to kind of look at these questions, but we're not going to just say, hey, we're a bunch of smart people, let's figure it out. We're going to go to God. We're going to say, Lord, what's your answer to these questions? So today we're going to kind of look at this one. And again, when we look beyond ourselves to the one who put us here, we begin to get the answers as to why we're here. So you can follow along in your notes. Our first fill-in there is, I'm here to have a relationship with God. Number one, first and foremost, we're here to have a relationship with God. What does that mean? That means I'm here to worship God, to obey God, to serve Him, to impact the world for Him. I tried to make these as succinct as possible, but so, please don't come up to me after and say, Pastor, we're here to worship God, not just to have a relationship. I know that's part of it, okay? God didn't say, hey, Adam, I'm going to pop you down here on this planet. Good luck, buddy. And then walk away and never talk to him again. That wasn't the purpose of Adam being placed. That's not the purpose of you and I to be put here, why we're put here. So here's Zacchaeus. He's looking beyond himself to Jesus. Okay, the Lord comes into the town walking along, and he walks right up to Zacchaeus. Now picture this. We're not talking about Jesus comes into town and there's one or two people here or there. We're talking about crowds of people. They went wherever he went. And he's walking through this town. Now, we already said, what was Zacchaeus' profession? He was a tax collector. That's not something that you were proud of back then. Okay, that's not something that you would go around, you'd go to a party and say, hey, I'm a tax collector, what are you? It wasn't good. Okay, he was not a liked guy. Jesus walks into town, and it says when he gets into town, he walks right up to where Zacchaeus was. Where was Zacchaeus, by the way, at this time? In a tree. We're going to talk about that in a minute, okay? He's in a tree. And so Jesus walks into town, walks right up to Zacchaeus and says, and calls him down. And we see that in verses 4 through 6. It says, so running ahead, this is Zacchaeus. He climbed up a sycamore tree to see Jesus, since he was about to pass that way. When Jesus came to the place, he looked up and said to him, Zacchaeus, hurry and come down, because today I must stay at your house. So he quickly came down and welcomed him joyfully. You got to kind of try to put yourself in Zacchaeus' shoes. Okay? He is hated by everyone in Jericho, except for the Roman officials. And here's Jesus, the most prominent Jewish citizen in all the land, the most well-known one at this point in time. Everybody is a big hoop, and he comes right up to this sinning, rotten, bitter guy and says, hey, Zacchaeus, you and I, we need to talk. You and I need to spend some time together. You and I we're going to go to your house, and we're going to sit down, and you and I are going to have a relationship. You got to understand, you look at the end here, it says, so he came quickly down and welcomed him joyfully. You got to wonder, when was the last time this poor, rotten, sinful little guy ever had any kind of joy? Other than getting money and really sticking it to his people, his own people. When was the last time this guy ever experienced joy? When was the last time this guy ever experienced being a part of something, or being liked, or being welcomed, or being even talked to in anything other than kind of a bitter kind of way? You got to wonder these things. This, by the way, is what's called as a DTR moment. And we've shared this with you before. DTR is define the relationship. Okay? It's a very, very common term. A lot of people know already what it means. It's used a lot with young adults in figuring out where they stand in a relationship. Those of you that are married, you remember when, I look at our kids and I think back to the dating years, and I think, those were horrible years because they were so awkward. You really didn't know where you were going, and maybe people did it a whole lot better than me. But I was always confused. I was always kind of like catching up, But typically, guys in general, we don't really like these DTR moments. Typically, during that dating time, the girl would ask where the relationship is, and if you guys are anything like me, it felt like the oxygen got sucked out of the room. you get kind of dizzy, you get kind of confused, and I would stutter and stammer, and I would end up saying something as profound as something similar to this. I like you and think you're pretty. And that was, that's how I would respond to a DTR moment. And then I'd run for the hills, typically. Okay? Now, some of you guys may have been really good at this, but I was not good at all. And Zacchaeus runs smack into the most powerful, significant DTR moment of his entire life. We know that Jesus reached out to everybody he came across, but not everybody responded this way. The Pharisees responded very, very differently than this. Okay? The rich young ruler responded very, very different than this. Not everybody responded this way. Lois said that he climbed a tree, a sycamore tree, right? Okay. I did a little bit of research on this. So this is a DTR moment. I did a little research on these trees, and it seems that they have very, very extremely big leaves. It's not a tree that has little leaves. They're massive leaves that you can actually hide behind. Okay? And Zacchaeus climbs into this tree because he wants to see Jesus, but I wonder if he's kind of hiding from Jesus. I wonder. Okay? He wants to see Jesus, but doesn't necessarily want to be seen by him. Have you ever been there? Have you ever been in a situation where you would kind of like to know more about God, but you don't necessarily want God to know a little bit more about you? You ever been there? It's a tough place to be. You think, I'd like to know more about God, but I got some junk in my life I really don't want him to see. We call that junk sin. Call it what it is. Okay? I remember being at a movie theater one time. My Bible college had pretty strict rules. You could not go to any movie. It could have been a rated G, little kid, funny Hello Kitty movie. You couldn't go. Couldn't go to the movie theaters while you were in a semester. So me being the guy that I was, I didn't, but the very next day that the semester was over, guess where I was? Movie theater. Okay? And this one time, it was a buddy of mine, we were going to watch the movie, and I remember sitting there, seeing the movie, and it was a pretty violent movie. There wasn't anything to write home about, but I remember sitting there thinking, I don't think I really want Jesus to see me right now. And it hit me that if Jesus came back at that moment, I wouldn't be able to walk into his presence with my head held high, hungering for him. I'd be more like this. It's just kind of the feelings that were going on at the time. And it was that time where I wanted to know more about God, but at that moment I really didn't want him to know more about me. And I wonder if that's where Zacchaeus was at this time. It's kind of like playing a game of hide and seek with God. Remember when you played hide and seek with your kids when they were really young? And I remember my kids went through that stage where we'd play hide and go seek, and I'd say, okay, go hide. And they would look around, and they'd stand in the middle of the room, and they'd do this. Right? How many of you had kids that did that? Because if they can't see you, that means you can't see them, right? And I would ham it up. I'd walk right by them. Gee, I wonder where they are. Where are my kids? Gee, they hide really, really well. And meanwhile, they're like this. Sometimes that's us and God. Sometimes we play hide and go seek with him. And we think, okay, I don't want him to see me right now, but I'm going to go to church on Sunday and it's going to be okay. Or I'm going to do this thing. I don't know if he's really pleased with it, but I'm going to do it, and then I'll ask forgiveness for it. Okay, that concept of not asking permission but asking forgiveness, it's better to do one than the other. And we kind of have that mentality when it comes to a lot of things in life. But really what we're doing is this. Middle of the room, lights on, eyes covered by our hands, because God sees everything. It's one of our oldest tricks, by the way. It's one of our oldest games that we play with God. Remember Adam and Eve? They were in the garden. God said, whole thing's yours. Just don't eat from that tree, but everything else is yours. Do it. Just have fun. Name the animals. Take care of the garden. It gave them the whole place. Just don't eat from that tree. And we understand that was God giving them an opportunity to worship him through obedience. But what did they do? They ate from the tree. And then what did they do? Immediately after eating from the tree, what did they do? They hid. Maybe like Zacchaeus. Maybe like you and I. And Genesis chapter 3, verse 8 says this. They heard the voice of the Lord walking in the garden in the cool of the day. I believe this is a pre-incarnate Christ. I believe this is God in the flesh. This is Jesus Christ walking through the garden. And Adam and his wife hid themselves from the presence of the Lord among the trees of the garden. Why do we hide? Shame, guilt, fear. We don't know if God will love us and accept us. Our inclination is to pull back and to hide. And I got a statement up there, God's love and grace is greater than our sin. I'm not minimizing sin. Sin is what it is. It causes death. It separates us from God. But God's love and his grace is greater than our sins. How do I know this? We look through Scripture. Romans 5:8 says, God commended or demonstrated his love, proved his love toward us, in that while we were yet sinners, Christ died for us. That means God looked at you and said, Mac, I know everything that you've done. You cannot hide, but I love you anyway. And you're not going to be able to change that because we can't out-sin God's love for us. So when we hide, we're really not, first and foremost, because God, he's walking through the garden here, and he says to Adam, what does he say to Adam? Okay, so he's walking through the garden, what does he say? Adam, where are you? Has that ever struck any of you as being a peculiar question coming from God? Adam, where are you? Let me ask you a biblical question. Did God know where Adam was? Did God know exactly where Adam was? So you got to wonder, why in the world did God ask Adam that question? It's fascinating. I think God's playing their game of hide and seek like I used to do with my kids, but not really playing. I think he knows where they are. Proverbs 15:13 says, the eyes of the Lord are in every place, beholding the evil and the good. So God sees everything. So we know that from a biblical standpoint, from a doctrinal standpoint, God sees everything. What does the word everything mean in the Greek? Everything. Every word, every action, every thought, every emotion, every possibility, everything. So we know that, okay? He knows everything about you. He knows everything about me. And if he knows where they're hiding, we ask the question, why does he ask that question? I think he asked that question so that Adam and Eve can think about where they are. It's a DTR moment, okay? Sometimes we need to think about where we are in our life. Sometimes we need to stop and say, okay, where am I? Where am I with God? Where am I in my walk? Where am I, am I closer to the Lord today than I was a week, a month, a year, 10 years ago? Is my relationship with God growing? If I hit a DTR moment and have I hid myself as opposed to embraced what God wants? And I think that's what he was doing with Adam and Eve here. Sometimes we need to think about where we are in life. And why is that? Because Jesus said in Luke 11:23, he that is not with me is against me, and he that gathereth not with me scattereth. So Jesus is saying, here's my DTR moment for you. You're either with me or not. There is no in between. There is no, well, I'm kind of with you. I kind of like you, Lord. I kind of like being with you when things are going good. I kind of like coming to you when I need something, but I kind of want to live my own life too. God says either you're with me or you're not. I've talked to you guys about this before, about our relationships with our husbands and our wives. And you think, ladies, I've asked you this question over and over again. If your husband was with you, 24/7, 364 days out of the year, but that other day, that one day of the year, he was with someone else, that would not satisfy you. That would be an abomination to you, and should be. Hey, honey, I'm going to be with you for all the year, but one day I'm going to go and be with some other woman or other relationship. Or you'd be like, are you kidding me? That's not acceptable. I wouldn't be able to make it out of my house before my wife would hit me with something and I'd be done. Okay? As delicate as she is, if I said that to her, I'm done. Okay? She looks all sweet and nice and everything, but she'll hit me with a bat. Okay? Not that she has hit me with a bat, but I can see her doing it. I had a dream about that one time, and it was not good. But that's, so God says, you're either with me or you're not. Choose. Choose you this day who you will serve, Joshua said to the people. Choose. David said, there's one thing I desire, to be in the house of the Lord. Paul, one thing. These people throughout Scriptures, one thing. They wanted one thing, and that was to have that relationship with God. Pascal says that within every person is a God-shaped void, seeking to be filled. The only one that can fill it is God. When we try to fill it with something else, like Adam and Eve did, like Zacchaeus had been doing, like we do, then it doesn't get fulfilled. So we need to decide whose side we're really on. Okay? And we asked this question. I asked this question to you. I asked this question to me. And this is a question that we're going to want to be asking ourselves throughout this week. In your quiet time with the Lord, where am I with God? Am I really, truly owning a relationship with God? Because that's why I was put here. Am I really, truly with God? So over the next 40 days, we're going to be getting off that treadmill. We're going to be asking some of these questions. This is not an easy question. This is not a pleasant question all the time. I'll go so far as say this is probably never an easy question, because there are times when we say, oh, man, I'm really far away. And then there are times we say, I feel closer to God than ever before, but I hunger for more. So there's always this, we could always draw closer and closer to our relationship, and just so we can draw closer and closer to our spouses and our children and parents. But this purpose has two phases to it. I'm here to have a relationship with God, but I'm also here to have a relationship with others, other people. And we talked about this a few weeks ago a little bit, okay? We're not in this alone. And I got a neat story for you. I think I shared this years ago. This is this came out of England. It's an actual story. It was an accident report submitted to the insurance company, okay, from a job site. And this is an excerpt from what was written by the guy that was in the accident, okay? This is what he wrote. He said, I am a bricklayer who had to move 500 pounds of bricks from the 5th floor of a building to the sidewalk below. He goes on to say, it would have taken too long to do it by hand, so I decided to put the bricks in a barrel and lower them by a pulley, which I fastened to the top of the building. After tying the rope securely at ground level, I then went to the top of the building, fastened the rope around the barrel, and loaded it with the bricks, and swung the bricks over the sidewalk for a descent. So he went down, he tied the rope at the bottom, 5 stories down, went up, put a pulley up there, over the pulley, tied it around the barrel, loaded the barrel with the bricks, 500 pounds of bricks, and pushed it out over the building, and there it's kind of suspended. Brian Kenny's like, oh, I know where this is going. So then he writes, then I went back to the sidewalk and untied the rope and held it securely to guide the barrel down slowly, but I only weigh 140 pounds. The 500, now this is what he's writing down in his accident report. The 500-pound load jerked me from the ground so fast, I didn't have time to let go of the rope. So as I passed between the 2nd and 3rd floors, I met the barrel coming down halfway. This accounts for the bruises and lacerations on my upper body. I held tightly to the rope until I reached the top, when my hand became jammed in the pulley. This accounts for my broken thumb. At the same time, however, the barrel hit the sidewalk with a bang, and the bottom fell out. With the weight of the bricks gone, the barrel weighed only 40 pounds. So my 140-pound body began a swift descent. He was very articulate. This guy did a really good job. I met the barrel, the empty barrel, coming up halfway down. This accounts for my broken ankle. Slowed only slightly. That's my favorite line. He hits the barrel. Slowed only slightly. I continued the descent and landed on the pile of bricks. This accounts for my sprained back and broken collarbone. At that point, I lost my presence of mind completely and let go of the rope. The empty barrel came crashing down on me. This accounts for my head injuries. As for the last question on your insurance form, what would you do if the same situation arose again? Please be advised that I am finished trying to do the job all by myself. We do this every day. You know, we look at that, we're thinking, for a smart guy, he was really dumb. But we do it every day when we try to do life by ourselves. When we try to do this life alone without being engaged in other people. Let's put it right out there. How many of you, there are times when you just like to be alone? Let's be honest. Absolutely. Okay? But at a certain point in time, we find that we need people. We need each other. It's great to get away and take a deep breath and just, But it doesn't take long for us to realize we kind of need each other. And we're kind of put here for that. In Genesis chapter 2, verse 18, it says, "The Lord God spake, it is not good that the man should be alone. I will make him a helpmeet for him." So here's God, makes everything perfect, everything good, puts Adam there. He looks around, everything is good, and then all of a sudden something's not good. This guy's by himself. Yeah, God's there. He has access to God, which is awesome. He's got all these animals that he can interact with. How many of you are animal people? Okay, yeah. Some people feel, how many of you feel like your, I'll call it pet, okay? I know that's offensive to some, but your pet, your animal, is part of the family. How many of you feel like that? Okay. He had every animal on the planet to interact with. He had, he had it all, except another human being to do life with. And that's what made it not good. So for the first time in God's creation, something not good popped up. We were never meant to do life alone. That's why Hebrews 10:25 says not to forsake the assembling of ourselves together. We need to get together. We need to interact with each other. We need to be involved in people's lives and let them involved in ours. So chapter 19 of Luke, verse 5 says this. When Jesus came to the place, he looked up and saw him and said to Zacchaeus, "Make haste, come down, for today I must abide at thy house." This is tremendously huge. The class system back then was a very, very powerful force. Okay? There were certain people's houses. If you were a good citizen that wanted to keep your reputation, if you wanted to remain clean and pure in the eyes of the people, there were 3 places you did not go. This was one of them. You didn't go to the home of a beggar. You didn't go to the home of a prostitute. You didn't go to the home of a tax collector. They were put in that group. They were put, obviously, if somebody had leprosy or something like that, they would be outside of town. You don't do that either. But in the class system, tax collector was equated to prostitute. Okay? It was equated to a beggar, and it was not a good situation. But that's exactly what Jesus did. And typically, as is typical, right after that, somebody had a problem with it, of course. When they saw it, they all murmured, saying that he was going to be a guest of a man that is a sinner. Did Jesus know he was a sinner? Did Jesus know he was hated? Did Jesus know that this was going to probably not look good on his own resume and his own reputation? Did Jesus care at all? No. Because what Jesus cared about more than anything else was his relationship with this guy. And that's the same thing for you and I. But what is he showing? He's showing relationships matter. Okay? We have a relationship with God, and Jesus is demonstrating, hey, I'm willing to, as a human being, I'm willing to have a relationship with you right now, right here. We need each other. And you see, he shows Zacchaeus here just how much he values him. Because it wasn't just, hey, Zacchaeus, come on down, let's have a chat right here in the street so everybody can see that, we're not really that close. He said, no, I want to abide at your house. I'm going to eat a meal with you, which in that culture was huge. You ate a meal with somebody, your lives blended. That's why I love these gatherings. That's why I'm hoping that everybody sticks around. I know people got things to do, but, call and cancel, okay? When we mix our lives together, we're fulfilling part of the plan of why we're here. And Jesus does this. And this is the beauty of God's plan. He includes you and I to have a relationship with him, but to also deal with each other and have a relationship with each other. So regardless of status, age, race, gender, all that stuff, his plan, God's plan, is where we do life with him and each other. So why am I here? To do life with God and each other, for our lives to mix and to blend. My first, well, I guess it was really my second job, my first legitimate job. I shoveled driveways when I was a little kid, and I'd mow lawns as a little kid, and I'd go around the neighborhood and try to get jobs doing that, But my first, punch the clock kind of job was I was a dishwasher at a restaurant. And I remember coming in, and when my shift started, there would be a stack of pans 6 feet high that needed to be cleaned. I'd spend my whole shift going crazy trying to, because as you're cleaning them, guess what? There's more pans being tossed in. And so by the end of the shift, I would catch up just in time to punch the clock and go home. It was awesome. I was like, sense of accomplishment, big time. I'm coming in and there's this mound of pans, and I got rid of them, and everything's good. The kitchen's clean. And then I'd punch the clock and go home. I'd come back the next day. Guess what was waiting for me? That same stinking stack of pans. I'm like, didn't I take care of you yesterday? I'm a guy. I like to check the things off the list. Right? How many of you guys like that? You like the honey-do list. You check things off. As a matter of fact, if you do something that's not on there, you write it in and check it off. Right? That's what we do as guys. It's good. But day after day, I'd come in and there's that stack of pans again. And I quickly realized that there had to be more to my life than washing pans every day. The same stack of pans. And there is. We can have a meaningful relationship with the creator of the universe. We can have meaningful relationships with each other. And my friends, I think it's time for us to get off the treadmill and start engaging life, a life of purpose, a life of fulfillment, and a life of significance, and answer this question, why I'm here. I'm here to have a relationship with God and each other. Let's pray. Let's bow our heads for a moment, close our eyes. Before I close this in prayer, I want to re-extend the invitation to stick around after the service today. Join us for some food. There's plenty. It's soup, sandwiches, and somebody's got to knock Kim off the throne of the spoon championship there. Okay. If you've been here for 100 years, then stick around. We want to get to know you better. If you haven't been here for very long or very often, stick around. We'd like to get to know you. Okay. Also, I want to let you know that we're going to continue this series for the next few weeks, looking at some of these deep questions. So feel free to invite somebody to bring them in that may have these questions as well. But my big question for you right now, with your heads bowed and your eyes closed, as we're ready to close out here, where are you with God? The first question. Where are you with him? My Bible says that if you call upon the name of the Lord, you shall be saved. Calling upon the name of the Lord is not just some magic prayer that we say and then, we can walk away and that's it. Your spouse doesn't, on your wedding day, you didn't say I do and then say, okay, I'll see you when I see you. Calling upon the name of the Lord means surrendering your life to him, trusting in him for heaven, trusting in him for life here on earth, engaging his purpose and plan for you. And what I want to do right now, maybe you are here today, maybe you don't know the Lord as Savior, maybe you have not, maybe you've hit that DTR moment, determined relationship, and you've never really kind of made that step. If you haven't, and God has been speaking to you today somehow, some way, I want to help you do that right now. Right now, right where you are, you can say this to him. You can say it quietly to yourself. He'll hear you. You can say, Lord, I have sinned. I can't sugarcoat that, Lord. I have sinned. And Lord, right now, as best as I know how, I turn from those sins. I turn to you. I want to have a relationship with you, Lord. I place my faith, my hope, and my trust in your risen Savior, Jesus Christ. Come into my life. Save my soul. Let me know you. Everyone's head's bowed. Everyone's eyes are closed. My Bible is super clear. If God has called you and you responded to him, we're not saved by works. We're saved by his grace through faith. You responded to him today, and you prayed that prayer from the core of your being. My Bible says you're a new creature in Christ. My Bible says all of heaven is rejoicing right now. And I want to rejoice with him, and I want to keep you in my prayers. I'm not going to call out your name. I'm not going to make you jump up and down or come forward. I want to keep you in my prayers this week. So if you prayed that prayer with me just now, without anybody else looking around, can you do me a favor? Can you lift up your hand? You can put it right back down. I just want to see who you are just for a moment, just so I can keep you in my prayers. Father, we thank you so much. Lord, I thank you for those that have called upon your name today. I thank you for giving us purpose and a reason for life. Lord, I ask that you would help each and every one of us to draw closer and closer to you, to develop that relationship with you, to develop that relationship with other people. Father, I ask that you would lay your hand upon the rest of this day. I ask that you lay your hand upon the gathering that we're going to have. Bless the food, make it nourishing to our bodies, Lord. We love you so very much. We come to you in Jesus' name. Amen.